Good to see you guys this morning. I'm so glad to be here. For those of you who are visiting, I promise you I am not the guy who's normally up here. So if you are visiting, come back next week and you'll see what we normally have. I promise it'll probably be a little smoother. Uh, but what we're going to do here, got a phone. We're going to, there you go, buddy, I got you. I was telling my wife she actually had my daughter go with Kayla to Kid Street. I told her it was her last chance to run and get out of here before we got going, and she thankfully decided to stick it out with me. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Audric. I'm the youth minister here. I know some people have talked about my age and maybe not knowing how old I am with all the gray that I have. I'm actually 30. I'm not as old as I look. I started graying when I was 16, so hopefully I won't get kicked out of the youth minister position too soon for looking a little older. But so just remember that, guys. I'm not that old, and so I can relate okay to you guys over there. Hey, girls, I missed you this morning. I'm glad you're here. So this has been a crazy week. A lot of you have been here a few nights this week. We had VBS, and man, oh man, it was awesome. We had over 200 people. That includes kids and volunteers for at least 4 of the nights. I think one night we dipped a little below 200, but we had a ton of people here. I think it was definitely a big success. I even had 15, 16 teens a couple nights. So I was really happy to see that for a VBS. But real quick, I wanted to give a shout out to anybody who happened to volunteer, whether you just came to cut things out or whether you were a group leader, whether you taught a class. It doesn't matter what level, whether it's adult, whether it's kids. If you're up here on stage, if you were in a Rex costume, that's what I'm known as now in Kid Street. I get called Rex all the time. But if you were in any way, shape, or form helped put on VBS, I'd like you to please stand up real quick. There you go. Yes. Awesome. I feel like there's some people here, there's some people missing, or some people who didn't want to stand up. But I just want to give you guys an idea of how many people really put into that week. And, thankfully, God was able to touch so many people. And I just felt so blessed to be a part of that. And, I know you guys know that Mitchell and Gayla and Kayla put a ton of work in it. I can't say I put as much. They told me where to go and what to do. But those guys and the vision they had, it came together beautifully. And I was so glad to be a part of that this last week. But now that VBS is over, and now that we're kind of getting back into the swing of things, I've had one thing on my mind, and that's what I want to kind of talk about today, and that's school is coming back into session starting this Thursday. Ew. Right? I'm sorry. That's the only thing as a youth minister, that's all I can think about. I think about the kids going back to school and the challenges they're going to face. I know we got several teachers in the crowd, and I'm sorry. You got to go back and deal with them kiddos, but thank you for taking care of them. But it's just something that's really been on my heart and mind lately, so that's what we're going to kind of talk about today. I titled today's lesson, Standing Out, Living for Christ in Our Everyday Lives. So if I'm going to be talking kind of students a little bit more today in the way I direct my speaking, but please think of it in your everyday life, whether it's at work or maybe it's even just at home with your kid. Wherever you might be in your everyday walk, I just want you to kind of think about applying these steps to what you do. But I am going to phrase things a little bit more towards kids because that's what I do all the time. So please bear with me. So when talking about standing out, I've got 3 points that we're going to talk about today. One thing is doing everything for God, doing all things for God, repaying evil with good, and being different. So all those things, those are 3 things we're going to touch on. There's plenty more you can do, but those are 3 big ones that I thought would be good to talk about. First thing is going to be do all things for God. If you'll first turn with me to Colossians chapter 3. I turned faster with my phone. Let's see. It's going to be verses 23 and 24. Again, Colossians 3, 23 and 24. Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. seems pretty plain and simple. But when we're doing things, when we're going back into school, it's the first day, the first week, first month, quarter, semester, the whole year. There's a lot of things going on. It can be very easily to be distracted about who we're doing things for. Am I doing things because I want my parents to be happy with my grades so I can go out with my friends on Friday and Saturday? Am I doing things, maybe you have a teacher that you just happen to like. There's some really cool teachers out there. I know several here that you really want to work hard for, and they want to see the best pulled out of you, and you just feel like you want to do that. Or maybe you have a coach, and if you decided that you weren't going to do your work, you weren't going to be on the field. And the last thing you want to do is be there with the coach, because they don't treat you very nice if you're not able to be out there and perform sometimes. Maybe it's for yourself. Maybe you just are just perfectionist of the things you do. Maybe you want to attain great things. Maybe it's getting those straight A's because you have a place you want to go to school or a career you want to follow. And you know how much hard work it takes to put into it and to put yourself on that right track. Whoever those people are, whoever it might be, none of those people are right, not even yourself. We have to remember that whatever we do, we're doing it for God. He gave us the abilities and gifts that we have, and we need to make sure that we're using those abilities and gifts to further His kingdom, to better ourselves, to work in His kingdom. But those distractions are always there. Maybe it's not cool to be the smart kid, so I know I had friends like that who would just legitimately not do work because they didn't want to be seen as smart. They didn't want to be seen as, or people would dress a certain way because they didn't want to be seen a certain way. But the only person that you need to worry about is the person who gave you this message, the person who came and lived his life and gave his life for you to be with him forever. None of the other things matter. None of the other distractions, none of the other gadgets, nothing else. We have to try to set that aside and make sure that everything that we're doing is we're doing it for the Lord. We're serving Christ. I know it sounds weird serving Christ through doing science homework or math homework or writing an essay, but if you are able to put your time and effort into it, God is going to use the talents that you gain from the hard work that you put in, and He's going to use it down the line. You never know when you might run into someone who's struggling that you can help get a better grade. And then when they're asking you why you're being nice to them, you can tell them, hey, Jesus loves me, so hey, I'm going to help you out because He helped me out first. And that stuff was as simple as studying for a test. Someone who's having a hard time getting the geometry or trigonometry, or maybe some of you are in calculus, I don't know. Sometimes people have a hard time with that. Maybe you can help them out, and then share with them why you're helping them out. Galatians 1, verse 10. Let's hop over there real quick. Galatians 1:10. For am I now seeking the approval of man or God, or am I trying to please man? If I were still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ. Paul makes it pretty plain and clear who we should be serving. It shouldn't be mainstream media or whatever and the current trends or what's cool or what's neat. It shouldn't be what people are seeking out of you. Even if it's for some good stuff, you shouldn't be seeking the approval of a person. You shouldn't be seeking the approval of a group. Again, just remember that anytime you're doing anything, let's make sure we give that to Christ. Let's remember Him in all that we're doing, and you will be blessed in it. And you'll be surprised, what good will come if you're going to dedicate the normal little things of your life to God and what He'll do with you. Because I feel too often we work on our own merit. We use the talents that God gave us, but we don't glorify Him in it, and we don't remember that we're serving Him in it. So I'm just hoping and praying that this year that you can step into it at the beginning and start setting new habits and remember, this is for Christ. This isn't for me. This isn't for my mom and dad. This isn't for my teachers, my coach. It isn't for any of those people. This is for Christ. I'm going to get better for Him, and I'm going to love Him through geometry, through English, even PE. Make sure you throw those dodgeballs really hard. Next thing we're going to talk about, repaying evil for good. This is one that I think is pretty difficult. The first scripture we're going to be in is 1 Peter chapter 3, and it's a little bit a bigger chunk. It's verses 8 through 17. And Peter, there's another scripture later in Romans 12. We're not going to read through that one all the way, but Paul is saying a lot of the same things that Peter's here. I just kind of like the wording that Peter used a little bit more for what we're talking about today. But it's pretty difficult if somebody treats you wrongly to treat them right. I think most of us would agree. When somebody wrongs you in some way, calls you names, says something isn't cool about what you do, or who you are, who knows what people are going to say or do these days. I feel like they'll do anything just to seek attention. But it's really easy to just try to get back at them or to try to show somebody up and try to be better. Make sure you're stepping over them in some way, shape, or form. But that's not what Peter, Paul, or Christ would want you to do. We've heard it many, many times not to repay evil with good, and we're going to read how Peter words it here, starting in verse 8. Finally, all of you have unity of mind, sympathy, brotherly love, a tender heart, and a humble mind. Do not repay evil for evil or reviling for reviling, but on the contrary, bless. For to this you were called, that you may obtain a blessing. For whoever desires to love life and see good days, let him keep his tongue from evil and his lips from speaking deceit. Let him turn away from evil and do good. Let him seek peace and pursue it. For the eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are open to their prayer. But the face of the Lord is against those who do evil. Now who is there to harm you if you are zealous for what is good? But even if you should suffer for righteousness' sake, you will be blessed. Have no fear of them, nor be troubled. But in your hearts honor Christ. The Lord is holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you. Yet do it with gentleness and respect, having a good conscience, so that when you are slandered, those who revel your good behavior in Christ may be put to shame. For it is better to suffer for doing good, if that should be God's will, than for doing evil. We've heard it many times that if we're persecuted for being like Christ or in Christ's name, that we're going to be blessed for that. And in all honesty, if you are living a life for Christ and you are being Christ-like, you can count on things not being easy. You can count on people wondering what's up with you and what's wrong, making fun of you or not being your friends or doing all kinds of things against you. That's just something that happens for being like Christ. And I know to us who maybe have grown up in it and been around it a lot, I feel like sometimes it's harder than it should be. I know that I don't always show Christ in every example and situation in my life now. I don't take every opportunity that I'm afforded to show Christ and everything. I can't remember the last time that I shot up a nice prayer about someone who cut me off when I was driving down the road. Thankfully, it doesn't happen a lot in Crossville, but other places I've lived before, it gets really bad. And I still don't remember the last time I tried to bless that person. I don't remember the last time that somebody wrote something nasty that I appreciated or prayed for them if they were slandering somebody that I knew or myself. It is too easy to think negatively about those people. It's too easy to get into it and get caught up in what the world would have us do. I mean, that's what the world wants you to do, is to just jump in the fray. They want you to be like everybody else so we can fit in. But we're not going to get anywhere if we're trying to fit in with the world. If we really want the true blessings of things, I mean, why would God bless us for suffering through evil? I mean, he would. I mean, the thing is that if we're doing evil or anything, we're receiving our reward there. If we were suffering for doing good, we're going to receive our reward in heaven. God is going to take care of us and show us his love and that we were doing things correctly when we loved on those people. But no matter how good it might feel when we're getting back at somebody who treated us wrong or somebody who treated someone that we love wrong, you're not going to advance in Christ's kingdom by doing those things. People are going to look at you just as bad, if not worse, than the other people. I mean, how many times have you been in class and it's not the first person who says or does something, it's the second person who gets caught, right? It's never the person it's always never seems to be the person who's instigating, but a lot of times it's that second person who follows up the action that gets caught in the act of doing wrong. I think there's something behind that. That's why it's so important to catch yourself, to be different, to repay that evil with good, because eventually if you do that person good enough times, I have a feeling they're gonna start looking at you funny and just leaving you alone. Or maybe you'll even get to tell them why you're different. Maybe you'll get to show them what's different about you. That's why it's so important, as Peter says, to do things with gentleness and respect, because that way you're going to be able to reach people. If you do things, even if you're doing things that are right. When I think of a story when I was in high school. I was in a weights class, and I know it doesn't look it now, but I used to be in pretty good shape. I was playing football and stuff, and working out for the team and stuff was a lot of fun for me. But we were in this class. It was my senior year, and this class was for athletes only. A couple kids snuck in there. We were trying to get out of class, and our coach would not let us go until we were finished doing this. It was a pretty rigorous core exercise. And there was one kid in there who was really, really struggling, and he just could not hold it long enough, and we had to do this. I think it was supposed to be 5-minute exercise, turned into about 20, 25 minutes. We were actually almost late to class for our next class because our coach just would not let us go. And I see some smiles out there, so I know some people have been through this kind of stuff. But I had some friends on my football team in particular who started berating this kid in the class and on the way back to the locker room, and they were mad at him. They were I can't remember all the nice things they said. I probably couldn't repeat most of what they said, and I really didn't like it. It was eating me up inside, and I was getting pretty angry. So what I did was I went and I grabbed a couple of them and I pushed them against the locker, and I threatened a couple of them and told them, "Hey, this isn't how we treat people. This is what you do." And I said some things I can't repeat and stuff, and things that I did that I'm definitely not proud of. I guess I was glad that I stood up for somebody. But the next day, the head football coach came to class, and he took a large group of us out and laid into us pretty good. And then he called out some people who he heard had helped but didn't help in the appropriate way. And I just remember that hit me pretty hard because he looked me dead in the eye as he was calling us out and telling us what we're doing. So people are watching, no matter what you're doing. People understand and love Christ in ways that you don't realize they do. I had my coach in particular. He was a man who never cursed, never hardly yelled. It was weird. He was a football coach, but he didn't always seem like one. He was such a nice man, but he touched me that day in reminding me to repay the evil with good. Making sure we're doing things not only for the right reasons, but the right way as Christ would have done it. And that's something that is so easy to forget in the moment, and it's so easy to get worked up and riled up. And I just hope and pray that we can find a way to be above that this year and for years to come. To round out, we'll go to Romans 12 real quick. We're only going to take a quick look at verse 17, because like I said, this section was very similar to what Peter had written. Again, it says, "Repay no one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all." So there are things that you do in your Christian walk that are honorable to everybody. That no matter what people say against you, they will be put to shame, as Peter also said. But it makes me think of when we're talking fruits of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against these things there is no law. These are the things that if we are replicating what Jesus would have us do, and we are bearing those fruit, if we are taking our time to make sure that in every situation we are practicing those things and practicing the love that Christ had, there's no one going to be able to say anything negative against you. There's nobody's going to be able to put you to shame Only they'll be put to shame when they try to do that to you. So I just wanted to hit it home with that in particular, that please, 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 everything that you do, young ones, no matter what grade you're in. I see some really young little kids here going probably kindergarten stuff, and I see all the way up to juniors and seniors. No matter what you're doing, make sure that you're trying to act with that love, that you're trying to bear the fruit of the Spirit, be what Christ would be. No matter what people are going to do, Christ said to go the extra mile with the person who would have you go the mile with them. Turn the other cheek. Make sure that no matter what people are trying to do to you or what they're saying against you, that you represent Christ, that you use that love. Repay the good when people don't deserve it, because nothing but good is going to come from it. Your teachers are going to notice it. Parents, your peers are going to notice it. They might think you're weird, but they're going to notice it. I promise it's a good weird, because that's when you get, like I said, again, it's an opportunity. Hey, I'm different because Jesus loves me. Do you want to know what that's like? Do you want to be weird like me too? If you want to be a rebel, if you want to rebel against what you're supposed to do, love people. Jesus did it so well, he got killed. He was the ultimate rebel, because literally that's all he did. The man never sinned. The man loved everyone every day of his life, and they put him on a cross for it. A lot of times, like I said, we like to follow that crowd. We like to think that we're doing something different. Nobody's doing anything different. Ask your parents what they were doing back when they were your age. Ask people older than your parents what they were doing when they were your age. Ask the people in between. I promise you, it's going to be about the same thing. It might look a little different based on technology and things available, but we were doing pretty much the same things. Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun. It's not like we've made up these new things to chase and follow or new things to do. It's just new ways to do it maybe. But if you want to be a rebel, repay evil with good. And I promise people won't understand you. They won't get it. Be different. Philippians 2, verses 12 through 15. Philippians 2, 12 through 15. Therefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, so now, not only as my presence, but much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you both to will and to work for his good pleasure. Do all things without grumbling or disputing, that you may be blameless and innocent children of God, without blemish in the midst of a crooked and twisted generation. Do things without grumbling and disputing, grumbling and complaining. Has anyone in here ever complained about something they had to do? I heard a couple of laughs. There should be a few more, because I think it was all of us. How many of you, when you get asked to take the trash out, don't like it too much? Or clean up your room? Or do whatever your boss might have you do, the next project you have to work on? How many of you who are in charge of people hear grumbling or complaining all the time? I have a 3-year-old. I know what happens. Not as much as when it'll happen a little later, I'm sure, but it still happens now. But like I put up there, it says it sounds pretty easy, to be a light in the world. Because that's one thing he says, just do things without grumbling and complaining. But it's not in our nature to just submit to things. It's not in our nature just to want to do things that we're told. Again, that's why if you do it, that's when you're being a rebel. You're fighting the man. I'm going to show them. I'm going to do exactly what they asked me to do, and I'm going to like it. Actually, doesn't mean you have to like it. In fact, I think that's one thing that makes it different. That's why it is being different, because it's normal for us to want to do those things. But if you want to go ahead and be different, and you want to show something different to people, when you're given a pop quiz by your teacher, tell them, hey, thank you. Give me a chance to learn. When you have to rewrite your essay for the third time because you couldn't get it right, or you just weren't putting things together, thank you for the chance to get better. When you're struggling with understanding a concept in your math class, and they're asking you to keep practicing to get better, awesome. I'm going to do this. I'm going to work hard so I can get better, so I can pass my test. It doesn't mean that you have to like what you're doing, but if you're able to do it and you work heartily at it, it's kind of going back to the beginning. If you're working hard with things as if it was for God and not for the person asking you to, it's going to be a good thing. Now, sometimes we might think to ourselves, I sometimes look at the Old Testament and I think, how could those people do the things that they did? How could those people see the miracles? How could these people listen to God talking? And how could they grumble and complain? I wonder sometimes how Moses, even said, hey, I can't go do that when God's talking to him from a burning bush. That isn't burning. And he's saying, hey, go do this. I'll be with you. And Moses still is saying, no, I can't. It blows my mind. I'd hope that I would fall down and say, okay, yeah, whatever you want. Whatever you need me to do, I'll do. If you're going to be there, I can do it. But at the same time, we're talking about people who saw a sea spread wide open, walked on dry ground. They saw, manna come, so they had plenty of food to eat, even quail later after they complained about that. And they had everything they needed and still complained. So it's definitely not in our nature to accept circumstances and what we're doing. It's not in our nature to be okay with what's going on. There's something in us that just either wants more or just can't settle. If you can find a way to do that, even if it's just in the little things. I mean, maybe it's in straightening up your room in the morning. Maybe you don't like doing that. Maybe it is about stuff when you get to class. Maybe it's being able to resist talking to that friend. I am a chatterbox. When I was in class growing up, I could not stop talking. My teachers always I always had these weird notes, and my dad didn't know how I did it, but it'd be stuff like on my report card say things like, disruptive, talks too much, but a pleasure to have in class. Because even though I was talkative and whatnot, I was still a good kid, I guess. I don't know, but be different. Be that pleasure in class without doing those things that can be annoying. Help with things at home when you're not asked to. Help with things at school when you're not asked to. Maybe you're on a sports team. Help the managers get things ready for practice. Help clean up. Do extra things. Go the extra mile. Do things that are not normal. Love and take care of the stuff that you're doing. Love and take care of the people that are around you. Be different. Don't be like everyone else, because it's easy to go through the motions and be a part of clubs or sports teams, or not be a part of those. Be at home and fall through the cracks with things that are going on there. Be different. Lead your brothers and sisters by example. If you don't have any brothers and sisters, just love your parents and be different for them. There's a lot of opportunities if you just take the time to look. I feel like that's what Christianity is about a lot of times, is seeing the opportunities and taking them. Having your eyes open, looking around, and doing what you can when you see it there. Too many times, you see people just like this. Looking around, oh, hey. Texting each other across the room when we're in the same room. How many of you have ever done that, texted someone in the same room? For no good reason? I have. I've done that to my wife. She hates it. Or sometimes you don't want to yell across the hall or upstairs. Send a text or something. I don't know. Be different. Put it down. Talk to people. Be involved with people. Get off. Okay, none of you are on Facebook unless you're my age and older. Get off Facebook. Get off Snapchat, Instagram, all that stuff. Put it down. Look at the person in front of you. I mean, the live stuff is way better. I get in trouble for not taking pictures. I try to not take. My wife hates that I don't take pictures. I'm not on my phone taking pictures of things and stuff that we're doing. I don't take pictures of her and Elizabeth very often. Not because I don't like to take pictures, because I like to be watching. I don't want to see my life through my phone lens. And I'm not always perfect about that, but that's one of the places that I've tried to work on. But be different. See what kind of relationships you're going to be able to build and how you're going to be able to influence them. I promise you, you will influence them more through a conversation than you will on your story. I think is that what it's called? Your story on Snapchat? Yeah, thank you. I wasn't sure. I'm so bad. I think you have a story on Facebook too. I don't know. There's all kinds of weird stuff nowadays. I got to get more in touch. But be different. Stand out. Do things without complaining. So you can be blameless and innocent, children of God, without blemish in the midst of a crooked and twisted generation. Makes people sound pretty bad, that grumble and complain, doesn't it? I was just thinking about that, how bad it makes us sound when we do those kinds of things. So don't do it. Paul said it wasn't a good idea. John 13, 34, and 35. Turn there real quick. And if yours doesn't have red letters, these are red letters, so make sure you listen to them. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another just as I have loved you. You also are to love one another. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. I know a lot of my youth group goes to Stone. I think some, of course, go to CCHS, and then, of course, to the elementary schools. But how many of you, when you're at school, don't even interact with each other that are here right now, that come to youth group classes, that come to the same church building, praise the same God, sing the same songs? How many of you don't even pay attention to each other? How many of you don't even pay attention to each other when you're here sometimes? The way that we're different from the world is the way that we love each other. The way that we stand up for each other no matter how different we might be. The way that we look out for each other when someone's having a difficult time. Now, this could be a difficult time socially. This could be a difficult time in class. This could just be a difficult personal time. Maybe something's happening at home that's really hard. But sometimes it's too easy to say, wow, I feel bad for them, I'm going to pray. I know I do that as an adult all the time. Or I hear about something bad that's happening, and then I will pray, and I will think about them. But I don't do anything different. Do you think Jesus would have, if he was here with us, do you think he would just pray for you and that was it? I mean, you kind of hope he does, because he usually had miraculous power. He might get better right away. But I have a feeling that if Jesus was here amongst us, that he wouldn't just pray for you. He'd hop in his car and he'd drive down and see you. He would, if you knew someone was struggling in class, you'd go and help them with that subject that you just happen to be better in. If somebody was struggling socially, maybe they're the people who sit by themselves or the people who are getting into the wrong crowd. You go grab them, pull them out, and say, hey, you're better than that. Or you'd go sit with them and say, hey, I'm there for you. Now, it doesn't just have to be people in our church and congregation. But whenever Paul's writing about supporting and loving people, he always does talk to the brothers first, to the brotherhood, to the sisters, to loving our Christians first, and then and everyone else also. But he always puts an emphasis on loving the church first, and I wonder why. Have any of you ever noticed the people that you tend to hurt the most are the people who are closest to you? And I ask my wife. Well, don't ask her. You'll find out too many things about me. But I definitely sometimes struggle, or I can put on a face for other people, but then as soon as I'm home, I can't. Something comes off, I can't do it, and maybe I'm not as sweet and kind as caring to my wife as I am to the other people who I just saw and dealt with, because I put on that face, or I even cared and put out energy into them, but then I don't take that home with me, and I don't take the energy home to love and take care of my family the best way that I should. It's the people that we think are there, and people that we know are there are the people that we tend to hurt the most. I think that's why it's always reiterated in the Bible: love the brothers first, and then love everyone else. Love the people who are next to you. Love the people who are in this room. It's easy to love the kids. We'll let Kayla do that now, though. But but just keep loving the people that are here first. Love the people that go to church here and that are in your school. And what does love look like? I mean, well, what did Jesus do for people? Jesus prayed for them. He went out of their way to make sure they are okay. He raised them from the dead. If you can do that, that would be great. When people came searching for him for answers, he gave it to them. Maybe not the way that they wanted him, but he was always there, always supportive, always there. So do everything you can to be there for the people that are closest to you. So if you wouldn't mind, I know sometimes it's good to just look up here, but look around for a minute. I just want you to kind of look, and you're going to see a lot of familiar faces and a lot of faces that you don't know. And I want you to think for a second. Think of all the congregations that are just here in Cumberland County and how many people we know that are worshiping God in a different building right now. And then think there's people all over the state and all over the country, all over the world that we can love and we can be different to. But that's not going to matter if we can't do it to the people that are right here, right now. How is God going to trust us to love and spread the message of the kingdom elsewhere if we can't do it right here at home in Crossville, Tennessee? For those of you who go to Stone Memorial or to CCHS, if you can't love the people there, how are you going to love the people when you go to college somewhere else? For those of you who are still in elementary school, how are you going to love the people in high school if you can't do it in elementary school right now? For those of us who are adults, if we can't do it at work or we can't do it to the people here in this room, how are we going to show our kids to do it the right way? You just have to really take that gut check, really take that opportunity, because this is how Jesus said people are going to know that we're Christians. Do people that are in your lives, do they know the God that you serve? Do they know what Jesus means to you in your life? Because if they do, that means you must be loving people. Like I said, that's red letters. Those are ones to underline. Those are ones to remember. We have to remember to love the brothers, love everybody. In all situations, in all circumstances, because that's all that Jesus did. And if there is, again, what Jesus' love got him was death. So obviously he did something that was different, something that was wrong for what the people of the time had. I think if he was here today, his love would look different in a way culturally and stuff, but I think he'd still face the same ridicule. He'd still face the same struggles and challenges as he did then. Except for he'd get blasted on Twitter and who knows what other stuff, how it would get construed. I try to imagine that sometimes, but then my head starts hurting because I think about the way that the news and social media and stuff work, and I stop thinking about it. But just think of how if people don't know that you're a Christian, if people wouldn't recognize you, if they wouldn't know, think of how you can start loving differently. Think of what things you can do to go out of the way for those people closest to you, what you can do for those people that you don't even know, that people will automatically recognize who you are, and that is that you're God's. Not that I don't have family, but for some people who have been here a long time, you don't want to be remembered as, for as great the families are. Haven doesn't want to be remembered as Josh's daughter. She wants to be Haven, daughter of the king. For Reagan, she doesn't want to be remembered as Keaton's sister. She wants to be Reagan, a daughter of the king. For Dexter, he doesn't want to be remembered as Peyton's older brother. Oh, sorry, is that backwards? Are you remembered as Dexter's little brother? Well, somewhere. Well, either way, you want to be son of the king. You want to be remembered as somebody who loves like Jesus and acts like Jesus in all circumstances. You want people to see that, not anything else. Even though all those things are good things, I think it'd be cool to be thought of as Josh's kid or Keaton's sister. Brother, I'd have to be your brother, though. Be known as Dexter's brother, that wouldn't be bad. because those are good people who love and do set good examples, but I want to be remembered for one thing and one thing only. So hopefully this year, as you're starting school on Thursday, I know it's only for a couple hours, but it's a couple hours to get a practice in on being different. Go out there and love. Show them who Jesus is and what he means to you, and how he can change your life. Romans 13:10, I've told some people know that's my favorite Bible verse, is for love does no wrong to a neighbor, therefore love is the fulfilling of the law. What I love about that is, again, it just goes back to the fact that all that Jesus did to fulfill the law and become the perfect sacrifice was he loved people, because he didn't do anybody any wrong. He listened to his parents. That's a good thing. Remember, that's the first commandment, the promise, young people. He said, if you listen to your parents and you obey them, you're going to have a long life and good days on the earth. So listen to your parents. Anyways, but that's all Jesus did. It was love. And he loved every person where they were at, no matter what they were doing. He invited a tax collector to come hang out with him and be an apostle. He took a man who was literally killing people in his church and having them thrown in prison and said, hey, I like what you've got. Come and work with me. And he wrote half the New Testament, roughly half, and that being Paul. So remember, nobody's too far gone. No matter how bad people might seem or how tough it is to deal with them and love on them, they're lovable. Jesus, love the unlovable, touch the untouchables. He dealt with people who you were supposed to call unclean and cast out and socially, this is the law even saying it's okay to cast people out, but Jesus didn't. Love like Jesus loved. If there's anything you know about somebody that's going on with them, go reach out to them. Don't just pray for them and hope they're going to be okay. Go pray for them with them. Talk to them, see if there's anything you can do. Show people a different light. Show them somebody that they don't know. Or maybe somebody that they do know and that they just have kind of fallen out of good graces with. If you are struggling with loving people, if you are struggling finding that rhythm and that, I don't know, just that, you don't even know how to explain it, just that love, that's the way the Spirit feels inside you when you're loving people the right way. It's just, if you're having troubles finding that, just if you have questions about Christ, how to follow him, if you want to talk about baptism, if there's anything you need, please feel free to come forward. Myself and the elders will be here, and as we stand and sing this song of invitation.